What's up guys, hope you're having a good day. I'm back with my first breakdown video on YouTube in a few weeks. Haven't been able to upload videos over the last few weeks because some absolute cunts have tried to censor me and take my YouTube channel down. Now I don't want to go into too much detail on what happened because I don't want to give these cockroaches any more attention than I've already had to give them. But I haven't been able to upload because some fuckers basically got my YouTube channel taken down a few weeks ago, and the way that the YouTube process works is if your channel gets taken down for any reason, you're not able to upload or live stream until the issue basically gets resolved. So when my channel got attacked by these absolute scumbags, I then had to appeal YouTube's decision and basically counteract what these scumbags has said, you know, in terms of how my channel violated the rules of YouTube. And then obviously I've won the appeal and now I've got my channel back. But that took about 3 weeks to all play out. So I actually got my channel back a lot faster than I thought I would. But I wouldn't rule out this happening again in the future. So just know, if ever I'm not uploading videos to YouTube in the future, it's probably not because I don't want to upload videos. It's probably because there's a lot of people out there trying to take me down, trying to make life a lot harder for me than it needs to be, and just causing me a lot of problems. So in this instance, what actually happened was basically my channel got hit with nine of my videos getting copyright striked. So you can only see one of them here, but basically there's a long list. These absolute scumbags called Fecna Legal claimed copyright on 9 of my videos, which resulted in my channel getting taken down. And you can actually see the word in here. My account was up for termination. It was only because I had over 5,000 followers that my channel didn't get terminated straight away. It was still up even though I couldn't use it. It was disabled. It was still appearing in search results and stuff. But yeah, basically you can see your account termination is on hold, awaiting final review of account notification, which is basically like me appealing what Fecna Legal said about the content that I'd uploaded. So it's absolutely hilarious. I was blowing up YouTube's Twitter every day, you know, speaking to them in live chat, trying to get this issue resolved. But basically this legal company in Germany claimed copyright ownership of 9 of my videos because they said that I'd used like music, you know, that they owned in these videos, which is absolutely fucking hilarious because none of the videos that they actually copyright flagged contained any music. You could see, you know, one of the videos they claimed was a prop bet live stream, and as you guys know, not only do I not ever have music in my videos, I definitely don't have music in prop bet live streams. It's literally just me talking over my desktop PC. So the way that these cunts do things, if you go to Google and you type in Fecna Legal, you just look at their Trustpilot, and obviously they've got tons and tons of bad reviews where they've basically done the same thing or similar things to other people. And the way that this scam works is they will basically, you know, take a YouTube channel down, and then they will kind of contact you by phone or email and basically say, they'll try and scare you and say, you know, if you don't pay us X amount of money, we'll just take your YouTube channel down forever, you know, you'll lose your channel, or we'll sue you because of some bogus nonsensical bullshit. But bullies like this will never beat me. I don't give a fuck what they do, you know. Like I said, I wouldn't rule out this happening again. I wouldn't rule them out striking me again after this video goes out and they hear what I'm saying about them. But literally, fuck you. Don't give a fuck. You can take me to court. You can do whatever you want. Done nothing wrong. You are bullies, you are scammers, and you just live a disgusting life. So I'm back, boys. But just know, obviously the way the YouTube works is really fucked up because it's kind of like, you know, you're guilty until proven innocent, right? They just take your channel down straight away. Haven't been able to upload for 3 weeks. I know a lot of people out there that have had this problem, haven't been able to upload for months. Luckily, I won my appeal pretty quickly. But you know, YouTube's not the only place I post content, right? So if I'm not posting videos on YouTube because I can't, because fuckers are trying to censor me, you know, I post breakdown videos for every single fight to my website. If ever you want to get my opinions on fights, just go to my website, MMABettingTips.com, link in the description below. They'll never be able to censor that. And every single day over the last 3 weeks, I've been live streaming all my fight research on Twitch, at twitch.tv/Diary of a Pro Gambler. Link to that in the description below. YouTube have a lot of power. You know, they've got the big audience. And if you're not on YouTube, obviously you can't get your content out to as big of an audience. But just know, if you like my content, if you want to get my opinions on fights, there are plenty more ways to get my opinions other than YouTube. Because I guarantee this shit will happen again. I am being targeted, and there's fuck all I can do about it. Obviously, you probably know, it happens to a lot of people. This is one of the main reasons why Joe Rogan left YouTube and went to Spotify, over the whole way that YouTube acts in terms of, copyright. And obviously KSI, one of the biggest YouTubers in the world, has run into some problems recently over, the way that YouTube, handles situations and shutting channels down if ever that, you get accused of kind of breaking any of YouTube's rules. And, people that get shut down often haven't broken any rules. That was what happened to me. So if it happens to guys like KSI and it happens to guys like Joe Rogan, what hope have small fish like me got? But anyway, I don't give in to bullies. I don't give in to intimidation tactics. These fuckers will not get a penny out of me. And I will just keep fighting, keep going, and they will never silence me. So just want to let you guys know, haven't been posting videos, not because I didn't want to, but because there's just some absolute bastards out there that, for whatever reason, want to screw people over. And that's all they're trying to do at the end of the day, and get in the way of people, trying to do good in the world, trying to help others, trying to produce good content, and ultimately just trying to do good things. Anyway, boys, enough of that. Let's get into what you're all here for, which is fight breakdowns. And we've got 5 great fights on this main card for us to dig into. So speaking of guys that have had a lot of issues with social media platforms at the moment and getting shut down, the first fight that we're going to be breaking down in this video is Paddy the Baddy Pimblett versus Luigi Vendramini. And as many of you will know, Pimblett recently lost his Instagram account for going back and forth with trolls. I haven't really looked into the specifics of why Pimblett got his Instagram channel taken down, but he's complained about it online about how he feels that Instagram have basically let the trolls win. And Paddy, I can relate, bro. I can relate. Social media is a horrible place. There's a lot of bastards out there trying to screw you over. And, like I said, I don't know a lot about the specifics as to what Paddy said. So forgive me if Paddy deserved to have his Instagram channel taken down. But yeah, these social platforms, they do. I don't feel they deal with these issues in the correct way, and I've certainly experienced that firsthand with YouTube over the last few weeks. So anyway, let's get into this fight between Paddy Pimblett and Luigi Vendramini. So let's talk about the fight between Paddy and Vendramini. If we start off by taking a look at the odds, we can see that Paddy Pimblett is currently the favourite at average odds of around 1.72. So 1.72 minus 139 for an implied probability of 58%. If we take a look at the odds on Luigi Vendramini, he's currently around about an average of, call it 2.15, which is going to be plus 115 for an implied probability of 47%. So there's a lot of hype on Paddy Pimblett, making his UFC debut. He's a very popular character online, very popular character on MMA Twitter. And, there's a hell of a lot of hype behind this guy when I don't feel we've necessarily seen the skills to back it up. Now, that's not a detriment to Paddy. He's a young, inexperienced guy that's still forging his way in MMA and still trying to build a name for himself. And I think Paddy has done a tremendous job of building a name for himself and building a brand. He's got this very fun character. He's a very interesting guy. He's a very cool personality in the MMA community. But for me personally, and you guys will know this if you've consumed my content for a long time, the reason why I put so much weight on just watching fight footage and just studying fight footage to try and work out who has the most likely chance of winning. The reason why I put so much weight on fight research is to drown out all the noise, because guys like Paddy Pimblett, they talk a great game, they're very charismatic and they're very likable, but ultimately the only thing that matters is their skills in the octagon. And so, if you're really interested in this fight this week, I know that this is one of those fights that people are really excited for. Just know that the octagon and, the performances, the skills displayed in fights, that's the only place you'll find truth. And try not to be misled by, how popular a fighter is, how much the UFC or the MMA media hype a fighter up. And, try not to be misled by the things the fighters say and stuff in interviews, because, Paddy has got a lot of hype coming into this fight against Luigi Vendramini, but I don't necessarily feel like he's got the skills to back it up at this stage in his career. I think this is a fight where we're going to learn a lot about Paddy. From a betting point of view, this is a very difficult fight for us to kind of break down, because if we look at Paddy's record, he hasn't really fought a lot over the last 3 years. So you can see his last 2 fights have ended very quickly. And credit to Paddy, he looked absolutely phenomenal in his last 2 fights against Decky Dalton and David Martinez. But the last time we got a really good look at Paddy was all the way back in 2018 against Soren Bak, which, this fight is this fight took place 3 years ago now. And with Paddy being very young at 26 years old, he's going to have improved so much over the last 3 years. The version of Paddy that we saw back in 2018 against Soren Bak is going to look nothing like the version of Paddy that we get this weekend against Luigi Vendramini. I think that with Paddy's sponsors and his popularity, he's probably quite well funded for a young fighter. He is probably one of these guys that is able to, at his age, train MMA full time, and at such a young age, at just 23 years old back when he would have fought Soren Bak, he's going to be a sponge. He's going to be, absorbing new information and new techniques very quickly. And this guy is going to make exponential improvements from fight to fight. And we have seen a little bit of this. If you go back and watch his fight against Soren Bak, there was a lot of grappling in that matchup. But, in the moments that both guys were standing up, Paddy looked very stiff, very awkward, in striking range. He didn't read his opponent particularly well. He was very flat-footed, hands down low, chin up high, and he didn't react very well to getting hit. Now, no one likes to get hit, but you can see that for guys when they get more experience, there is a certain level of comfort to getting hit in terms of they can kind of see the shot coming and ride with it and roll with it. Paddy back in his fight against Soren Bak showed a huge lack of experience in striking, where he would kind of, turn awkwardly after getting hit and turn his back to his opponent, and it just wasn't good. It really wasn't good. But in his last 2 fights against David Martinez and Decky Dalton, obviously these fights consisted of a lot of grappling as well, but in those brief flashes of Paddy when he was in striking range, he looked a lot more comfortable than he did back in 2018 against Soren Bak. He moved a lot better. His footwork looked a lot better. He did a much better job of, judging the distance and also reading his opponent. And so that was very interesting to me, because if I was researching this fight and basing my opinion on, all the stuff we've seen Vendramini do in his past fights, and then, making a judgment based on Paddy Pimblett's performance against Soren Bak, I would feel pretty confident that Vendramini would beat him this weekend. But the level of improvement that I saw from Paddy in his striking from, the Soren Bak matchup to the David Martinez matchup, it's night and day. So it's clear Paddy Pimblett is making huge improvements, and, if that's how much he's improved in his comfort level and the way he moves in striking range, I can only imagine that Paddy is going to see, or Paddy has probably gone through a similar level of improvement in every other department. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what version of Paddy we get this weekend, and hopefully this fight doesn't end quickly. Hopefully it goes deep, and hopefully we'll get to learn a lot more about Paddy, because as it stands, for me, he's pretty much an unknown. Didn't look at all good, back in 2018 against Soren Bak, but that fight was 3 years ago, and then these fights ended very quickly. So that's what makes this fight very difficult from a betting point of view. That's what makes it very, very difficult to get a strong read on this matchup. For me, Paddy is a complete unknown, and we've just got to use this weekend's fight against Vendramini to, forage for new information, to learn a little bit more about Paddy Pimblett. So Paddy, is 5'10". Vendramini 5'8" with a 73-inch reach. He's 25 years old, so Paddy will have a bit of a size advantage here. Vendramini's a little bit older. There's nothing major there though. But from a stylistic point of view, the way that I can break this fight down to you is going to be based predominantly on what we've seen from Paddy in that Soren back fight. So, I will kind of break down for you, how I think both these guys match up. But just know, I don't at all feel confident in this breakdown, simply because, like I say, there's just not enough recent footage available on Paddy to form a strong opinion on this one. So from what we have seen, Paddy is a very low-level striker. The caveat to that is that obviously he has moved a lot better in his last 2 fights against Martinez and Dalton, but he's a very low-level striker. Doesn't react particularly well to getting hit, doesn't really read his opponents particularly well, and in terms of striking offensively, he's a very loose, wild, sloppy striker. Very poor technique, kind of loads up on big single shots, it throws a lot of wild spinning stuff. There's just not a lot of fluidity to his striking. You can really see that Paddy's entire striking game is purely to just enable him to close the distance, get a hold of his opponent and try and drag him to the ground. This guy is very much a grappler, but I do expect to see big improvements in his striking when we see him this weekend against Vendramini. Vendramini's striking is pretty good. He trains at Factory X Muay Thai and the Mat Montoya, so even though initially originally he did have a base in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, he's now training at a predominantly striking based gym. Vendramini is one of these guys that I feel is still very much trying to discover himself and work out the kind of the style that works best for him, because throughout Vendramini's short UFC career, and I say short because he's only had 3 fights, but throughout his UFC career, we've seen very different styles to him. We've seen him come out the gate super fast and super aggressive against Jason Ayari and Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. And, in round 1, managed to knock Ayari out. But in the Zaleski dos Santos fight, came out the gate super hard, burnt himself out, gassed out in the second round and then got finished by Dos Santos. In his most recent fight against Fariziam, we saw a very different side to Vendramini, where he started very slow, didn't really do a lot for the first 2 rounds, and then poured it on big time in round 3 and gave Fariziam absolute hell. So in his 3 fights in the UFC, we've seen a big contrast in Vendramini's pacing. We've seen in his debut starting very fast and then fading very quickly, and then in his fight against Fariziam starting very slow and then finishing very strong. So for me, Vendramini is a talented young fighter who at the moment is experimenting with different styles and working out different ways to pace himself over 3 rounds. And I'm just wondering if this weekend we're going to see that kind of perfect balance between the different sides of Vendramini we've seen, because in Dos Santos he was far too aggressive early, burnt himself out in round 1 and just put everything into round 1 and didn't leave himself with enough gas in the tank to be competitive in the second and third round. And then the total opposite in the fight against Fariziam, where he looked great in round 3, dominated round 3, but because he barely did anything in the first 2 rounds, he lost the 29-28 decision. What I'm wondering this weekend is if Vendramini is going to take what he learned from the Dos Santos fight, take what he learned from the Ziam fight, start a little bit, start with a little bit more output this time, be a little bit more aggressive sooner, and perform better across the 3 rounds, rather than in the fight against Dos Santos putting everything into round 1 and the fight against Ziam putting everything into round 3. I'm wondering if this is the fight against Paddy Pimblett where he finds that balance. However, one thing that could make this a tricky fight against Paddy Pimblett is Fariziam very much played Vendramini's game. It was quite clear in that fight that Vendramini was starting very slow and had very low output so that he would be able to pour it on in the second half of the fight. I don't think he's going to have that luxury against Paddy Pimblett, because Paddy is very aggressive. He's very amped up for this UFC debut as well. It's a debut he's been waiting for a long time. He's talked a lot of shit online. He is ready to go this weekend. And so, with Paddy being the kind of guy that isn't going to respect, fighting at a slow pace, which could be what Vendramini wants. Paddy's the kind of guy that's going to come out, push a high pace in round 1, get in Vendramini's face, force him to defend takedowns, force him into a scrap, you know, it will be interesting to see how Vendramini reacts to that. And, you know, if his gas tank has improved since he made his debut against Dos Santos. Because one thing I'll say about Paddy, his gas tank didn't look great against Soren Bak. You know, I will let him off. You know, in the Soren Bak fight, he did exert a lot of energy in round one. You know, he was very close to submitting Bak. He committed really hard to a rear naked choke. You know, burnt his legs out with a body triangle. You know, but we have still seen Paddy slow down, and he also slowed down against Narimani as well. So both these guys have had gas tank issues in the past, although I wouldn't necessarily say either of these guys has got bad cardio. I just think with them being so young, they just haven't really learned how to pace themselves yet. So this is a very interesting fight. Based on past performances, I would definitely lean Vendramini here. However, like I said, Paddy pretty much an unknown for me. And that's what makes it very difficult to bet this fight. Hopefully this weekend we get, you know, a fight that goes deep, a fight that goes the distance, and we get to learn a lot more about Paddy. Otherwise, if this fight ends very quickly again, you know, we're going to have all the same problems when Paddy fights next. We're going to be struggling to kind of get a read on this one. So yeah, this one I would definitely recommend passing on this fight. You know, but you know, if you really want to bet it, if you absolutely must bet this fight, I would go Vendramini. More experienced. You know, he's the underdog, which gives you the better risk to reward ratio. We know more about him. You know, he's been competitive against a decent UFC level guy like Ziam. He caused Dos Santos problems. He knocked Jason Ayari out. I think Vendramini's the strongest side to be on, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if Pimblett shows up looking better than ever and runs through him. Who the hell knows? Sorry I can't be of more use with that one. Just a lack of footage on Paddy Pimblett makes this a difficult fight for betting. So now let's talk about the fight between Khalil Rountree and Modestas Bukauskas. So if we start off by taking a look at the odds on this one, we can see that Khalil Rountree is currently the underdog at average odds of about 2.30, which is plus 130 for an implied probability of 43%. If we take a look at the odds on Modestas Bukauskas, he's currently around about an average of 1.65, which is going to be... 1.65, which is going to be minus 154 for an implied probability of 61%. So, very difficult fight to read this. Let's look at the tail of the tape, and then I'll explain why this is a very difficult fight to read. So, Rountree, 31 years old, 6'1" with a 74-inch reach. And then Bukauskas, 27 years old, 6'3" with a 78-inch reach. So Bukauskas with a bit of a size advantage and a 4-inch reach advantage. Now, both these guys are primarily strikers, and what makes this a very difficult fight to read is that they're both counter-strikers. So, with them both being counter-strikers, neither of them is going to want to lead, neither of them is going to want to go first, and because of that, you could end up with like an awkward... an awkward stand-up fight where, because neither guy is going first, not a lot happens. You know, it could turn into a game of chicken where both guys are waiting for the other one to pull the trigger so they can react to what they're doing and then look to counter. But they're both very different styles of counter-striker. So Modestas Bukauskas is a guy that likes to just circle away on the outside, play the role of matador, and pick guys off as they come forward. This is predominantly why this fight is a very difficult one to read, because Rountree doesn't really play that game. Rountree has a base in Muay Thai, and he's going to want to stand in the middle of the octagon, wait for you to come to him, see what see what you're going to bring to the table, and then read what you're going to do, try to slip, check, block, whatever you're going to try and do, and then fire back with his own counters. So, Modestas Bukauskas, his entire style revolves around reacting to what his opponent is going to try and do. He wants them to come forward and pressure him so he can kind of pick them off as they come forward. And even though to the naked eye it doesn't look like that's what Rountree is trying to do, it's very much the same but in a different range, where Bukauskas is trying to circle on the outside, whereas Rountree is looking to set up shop in the middle of the octagon, uses superior technique, accuracy, speed, ability to read his opponent. He's trying to use all those things against you. So, very difficult one to read because neither guy is really going to want to go first. What I will say about how these two guys match up, from a technical point of view, Rountree is a significantly better striker than Bukauskas. You know, Bukauskas is one of these guys that when he does attack, he kind of does it with an awkward, messy, blitzing style where, you know, he's either all the way out of his opponent's range, circling away from them, or he's blitzing forward in straight lines, like loading up on big power shots. I don't think that's going to be that effective against Khalil Rountree because, you know, because Bukauskas spends so much time circling away from his opponents, it's quite easy to read when he's going to come forward and attack. And so Rountree should see his blitz and attacks coming from a mile away and be able to slip him and deal with him. The question is, you know, can Rountree do enough damage, you know, trying to counter those blitz and attacks to outwork Bukauskas and win the fight? I'm not so sure, but I would certainly favour Rountree in the exchanges here. Of course, the problem with Rountree is that if you make him work hard early, he does slow down and become very, very sloppy into the second half of the fight. But I'm not sure that's going to be that much of an issue here because Bukauskas is a counter striker. You know, he's not one of these guys that is going to push a high pace, you know, force Rountree to work very hard and wear him down. But then on the other hand, you know, Bukauskas is 27 years old. He's a young guy. He's a smart guy. He's going to be making big improvements from fight to fight. And if Bukauskas has done his homework on Rountree and comes into this fight well prepared, he's going to know that it's very unlikely he's going to win a 15-minute kickboxing match against Rountree where he's going to kind of try and blitz out, blitz in and out of Rountree's range and outpoint him. You know, it's very unlikely because of how fast, technical, accurate Rountree is. You know, in order for Bukauskas to win this fight, he's going to have to start fast, force Rountree to work hard early, and drag him into deep waters where, you know, Rountree starts to become very sloppy and tired, which is exactly what Marcin Prachnio did. Now, obviously, in order to do this to Rountree, you've got to put yourself in a lot of danger. And I guess that's where this fight becomes quite complicated because, you know, is Bukauskas the kind of guy who is going to throw caution to the wind, bite down on his mouthpiece, come forward, you know, look to initiate exchanges with Rountree, look to tie him up, drive him into the clinch and wear on him, you know, maybe shoot some takedowns just to get Rountree to burn through energy defending the takedowns. Is Bukauskas the kind of guy to do that? The answer to that question is, based on his past performances, no. But at the end of the day, he's a talented young fighter. He's making big improvements from fight to fight. And, you know, if he wants to win, those are the exact things he's going to have to do this weekend at the end of the day. So, you know, Rountree, very, very one-dimensional, but he's very good at that one dimension, right? Very good at that one thing that he specialises in, which is Muay Thai. But with both these guys being counter-strikers, very difficult to read. If neither of them wants to go first, we could end up with a really tentative, passive, low-volume kickboxing match where not a lot happens. Like, personally, I would lean towards Bukauskas in this fight just because I feel the blueprint has been written on how to beat Rountree. And if Bukauskas comes in, fights smart, you know, he has all the skills he needs to beat Rountree. But he can't afford to try and counter-strike and win a kickboxing match here. He's got to get in Rountree's face early, rough him up in round one, wear on him, force him to exert energy. And I think Bukauskas will do really well into that second and third round. But very, very tough fight this, and I wouldn't feel confident in either guy. Okay. Now let's talk about the fight between David Zawada and Alex Morono. So if we start off by taking a look at the odds on this one, we can see that Alex Morono, currently the favourite odds are around 1.67, which is minus 149 for an implied probability of 60%. And if we take a look at the odds on David Zawada, he is currently around about an average of 2.25, which is plus 125 for an implied probability of 44%. So this is roughly 60-40, around 60-40 in the eyes of the bookies. So let's take a look at this fight and some of the X factors and the tail of the tape. So Alex Morono's 31 years old, 5'11" with a 72-inch reach. David Zawada, 31 years old, 6 foot tall with a 75-inch reach. So David Zawada will have a little bit of a size advantage here and a small reach advantage, 3-inch reach advantage. But I do think that the size and physicality of Zawada is a big X factor in this matchup, and we'll be talking about it quite a lot in this breakdown. But the biggest X factor in this matchup is obviously that Alex Morono is coming into this fight on just over a week's notice. David Zawada was originally scheduled to face Sergey Kandozko, who's pulled out, and now Morono is throwing his hat in the ring and stepping up on short notice. Now, we've seen Morono step up on short notice before and look just fine. His gas tank is pretty good, so I'm sure Morono will be fine this weekend, but it's tough to feel confident in a guy that is coming in on just over a week's notice, especially against a tough guy like Zawada that has shown in his last fight against Ramazan Emeev that he can fight at a very high pace for 3 rounds. Now, this week when we've been talking about this week when we're speaking about Paddy Pimblett and Luigi Vendramini, we were talking about how both those guys have kind of slowed down in some of their past fights. And that has been an issue for David Zawada as well. If you go back and watch his fights against Danny Roberts and against Jingliang Li, he slowed down and gassed pretty bad in both those matchups, which is why Jingliang Li was able to get a late finish. However, David Zawada, since those fights, has moved to train at American Top Team, which I consider to be, the best MMA gym in the world. Here we can see him at ATT, and I've really seen big improvements to David Zawada since he came into the UFC. Seen big improvements to his gas tank. He fought at a really high pace against Emeev in his last fight. Didn't slow down at all. If anything, his gas tank looked better than Emeev's. And on top of that, his striking looks a hell of a lot sharper, in his last fight against Emeev as well. So I think this move to American Top Team has been absolutely brilliant for David Zawada, and I'm seeing big improvements, from fight to fight in Zawada. So, this is one of those matchups where Morono's coming in on just over a week's notice. Zawada, coming on a full camp, training at ATT. I actually, even though Morono is the favourite here, I do think this is a very tricky fight for him, and I do think Zawada can cause him some big problems. I've been quite critical of Zawada in the past, haven't rated him that highly, but he has improved exponentially since his fights back in 2018, and he looked pretty good against Ramazan Emeev. He gave Emeev a lot to handle. So in terms of how these guys match up from a stylistic point of view, I guess let's talk about grappling first, because they both share the same kind of weakness when it comes to grappling. Both these guys have got very, very bad takedown defense. Zawada's takedown defense is absolutely awful, and so is Morono's, to be fair. Morono's a little bit more difficult to take down, but Zawada's very weak off his back, and so is Morono. Morono's got a very active guard. If you take him down, he will attack a lot off his back, but it's very, very easy to put both these guys on their back. Terrible takedown defense. Now, out of the two, you very rarely see David Zawada try to take his opponents down. This guy is a striker, and he wants to keep the fight standing. Whereas Morono actually has a base in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so from time to time, will try to take his opponents down and, cause him a problem with his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Came into the Anthony Pettis fight with a grappling-heavy game plan. It ended up costing him, because Pettis was able to out-grapple him, but Morono in the past has shown a willingness to grapple. Now, even though David Zawada has really bad takedown defense, he's a very strong, physically imposing welterweight, which makes it very difficult to hold him down. Zawada's one of these guys that may not have the best technique on the ground, but when he wants to get back up, because of how big and strong he is, it's kind of hard to keep him on the ground. And from a technical point of view, we're talking about this fight most likely being a stand-up fight. It's kind of difficult to read who is going to have the edge striking, but there's this huge intangible, which is Zawada's strength and physicality, and I really feel like it might be the difference in this matchup. When you look at how both these guys match up from a striking point of view, it's kind of difficult to pick a winner. Morono is much lighter on his feet, likes to bounce in and out of his opponent's range, but he comes at you with kind of goofy looping punches from weird angles. David Zawada, a lot more traditional with his style, likes to come forward, force you onto the back foot, pressure you, and load up on big power punches. Zawada is one of these guys that stands very flat-footed and very heavy. There's a real heaviness to his style of striking, and when he throws a kick or a punch, he really sits down hard on them and throws everything into them. There's a huge contrast in physicality between these two, And what's very interesting to me about this matchup is that Morono likes to fight in the middle of the octagon in kickboxing range. He's very light on his feet. You know, he's got that karate style. And he just, like I say, he likes to just fight in a very comfortable range. He likes to fight in the middle of the octagon. Zawada doesn't play that game. Zawada's one of these guys that wants to come forward, pressure you, put you on the back foot, take control of the centre of the octagon, and force you to fight in an uncomfortable range. And I really feel like Morono may struggle with this style, because everything that Morono does, everything he throws, his kicks, his punches, it all comes from his footwork. And when Zawada... Well, if Morono were to be pressured by a guy like Zawada and forced to fight on the outside, he's not going to have the time and space he needs to set up his power punches and kicks off that footwork, because his footwork is going to have to be reacting to what Zawada is doing, right, in trying to circle away from Zawada and create space for himself. So I actually think that standing up, Zawada could cause Morono some trouble here. He definitely hits a lot harder than Morono. Like I say, because of his physicality, it's difficult to stop him from coming forward. And he's tough and scrappy as well, man. He's not the kind of guy that is going to shy away from a firefight. We saw this in his fight against Li Jingliang. You know, he came forward, you know, had no problem exchanging with Li Jingliang. And Jingliang is a much more technical boxer, a hell of a lot more scary than Morono. So, if this fight goes to the ground, I would definitely give Morono the advantage. But because Morono lacks physicality on the ground, even though he's a more skilled grappler than Zawada, I don't really see him being able to cause Zawada trouble, because I think he's going to struggle to hold Zawada down. Standing up, I do give Zawada the edge. You know, a big part of that is the fact that Morono's coming on just over a week's notice, but I don't see Morono being that effective, you know, when it comes to striking, because I don't feel Zawada's going to let him fight in the range where he's going to be at his best, or at his most comfortable. Having said that, if Morono can, you know, effectively counter strike, very likely he can cause Zawada trouble, because Zawada is a big, strong, physically imposing welterweight. But that comes at a price, because he is a bit slower than Morono. You know, Morono is very fast, you know, very light on his feet, and maybe that speed will cause Zawada trouble, but I think he'll be alright, actually. So this is one of those fights where I don't really have a huge, like, strong lean either way. You know, I don't see a strong position to bet this fight. However, with Zawada being the underdog, he definitely gives you a better risk to reward ratio here. You know, I'd much rather have my money on Zawada as an underdog than betting a guy like Morono as a reasonably big favourite, stepping up on, you know, little more than a week's notice. I think that this is a clear dog or pass fight, and if you really, really want to bet this matchup, I would definitely take Zawada. I'm not remotely tempted to bet Morono here. So I think Zawada is definitely the right side to be on. So now let's get into the co-main event. And speaking about fighters stepping up on short notice, we've just spoken about Alex Morono. Sergey Spivak also stepping up on short notice. So let's talk about the main event between Sergey Spivak and Tom Aspinall. So if we start off by taking a look at the odds on this one, we can see that Aspinall currently a very big favourite at odds of around 1.40, which is going to be minus 250 for an implied probability of 71%. And if we take a look at the odds on Sergey Spivak, he's currently around about an average of 3.0, which is going to be plus 200 for an implied probability of 33%. So roughly 70-30 in favour of Tom Aspinall in the eyes of the bookies. So this week we've been talking you know, a lot about how it's very difficult to get a read on the Paddy Pimblett versus Luigi Vendramini fight, because there's very little footage available on Paddy Pimblett, and I feel like, or very, very, very little recent footage on Paddy Pimblett, right? There's a lot of footage from, you know, pre-2018, but not a lot of recent footage. The exact same problem is present with Tom Aspinall here, because if we look at his record, we can see that out of his 12 career fights, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of his is that correct? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, 10. Wait a minute, this doesn't add up. 12 career fights. Oh, there's a boxing bot. I counted. Sorry. Okay, so 9 of his 12 career MMA fights have ended in round 1. Only 3 of his fights have gone past the first round. What's very interesting about that is 2 of the 3 fights that went past round 1, he lost against Stuart Austin and against Parobiec. So that's quite interesting. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in this breakdown. But, when it comes to Tom Aspinall, this is another tough fight to get a strong read on because there just isn't that much available footage on him. We've got tons of footage of him, blowing through really low-level opponents in round 1, but we don't know how Aspinall is going to perform against a higher level of opponent or a guy that's going to push him into that second and third round, and really test him deep on in a fight. So Aspinall is a big favourite. People love big knockouts. Aspinall's an exciting fighter with a great highlight reel, and that is very much baked into his odds and the primary reason why he is a big favourite here. However, this guy, very much like Paddy Pimblett, for me is still a complete unknown, and I'm just hoping that Spivak can take this guy deep, take this fight to a decision, and that will enable us to learn a lot more about Tom Aspinall, because I feel like every time we see Aspinall, we've got the same problem where we don't really know what to expect from him. So Tom Aspinall's 28 years old, 6'5" with a 78-inch reach. Sergey Spivak, 26 years old, 6'3" with a 78-inch reach. So both these guys are very big, and both roughly around about the same size and roughly about the same age as well. They're both very young for heavyweights. These are absolute babies for a heavyweight. We know the heavyweights tend to peak at like 34, 35, 36 years old. So you'd expect these guys to be making big improvements from fight to fight. So, in terms of how these guys match up from a stylistic point of view, both these guys are predominantly strikers from what I can see. But Tom Aspinall is a hell of a lot faster. I think one of the reasons why people are so high on Tom Aspinall, and rightly so, is because he moves like a fighter that competes in a much lower weight class, which is always great because, it's one of the reasons that Cyril Gane is as good as he is, right? Cyril Gane's a huge guy. He's got all the attributes that you could want for a heavyweight, but he also moves like a fighter in the welterweight division. He has the gas tank of a fighter in the welterweight division, right? We don't know if Tom Aspinall has the gas tank of a fighter in the welterweight division because, all of his fights have ended very quickly, but he does move like a fighter in a much lower weight class. Moves very well on his feet. He's very light. He's very fast, very technical. Aspinall's an absolute nightmare. Very, very impressive style. Whereas Sergey Spivak is, a little bit... He's a little bit like your average heavyweight, where he is quite slow, he is quite sluggish, doesn't react particularly quickly to what his opponent is trying to do, and therefore there will be a huge speed gap between these two guys. Early on in the fight, when both guys are fresh, I would expect Aspinall to light Spivak up because he's a long, tall guy, slow hand speed, slow to react to what his opponent's doing. And I just think the speed differential is going to give Spivak huge problems here. But Spivak has actually shown a decent level of grappling in his past fights. We saw him against Jared Vandeira come out, get the fight to the ground, and use a grappling heavy game plan to dominate Vandeira on the ground. And that's interesting to me because we don't know anything about Tom Aspinall's grappling. Yes, he submitted Andrei Arlovski. Yes, he's taken down a couple of his past opponents who are really low level. But we haven't seen any of Aspinall's grappling, against UFC level fighters. And with Sergey Spivak showing a willingness against Jared Vandeira to take the fight to the ground, I'm wondering if Sergey Spivak's also going to come into this fight with a grappling heavy game plan. Because if it stays standing, I do see this being very difficult for Spivak. And I can't imagine he's going to want to stand there and get lit up by a guy like Aspinall that's going to be way faster and way more technical than him. So at the very least, no matter what happens this weekend, I hope we get to learn a little bit about Aspinall's takedown offense and ground game, because I would imagine Sergey Spivak is planning to come into this fight and look to take Aspinall down. Now, obviously, Spivak is taking this fight on less than a week's notice. Aspinall was originally scheduled to face Sergey Pavlovich, and we know that grappling takes a lot of energy. So I'm not sure if Spivak is going to have the energy to come in with a grappling heavy game plan. But if it stays standing, I do think Spivak is going to struggle quite badly here. But, earlier on in his breakdown, we spoke a little bit about a trend that was, it is not enough data to absolutely confirm a trend, but there's enough data there for us to kind of anticipate a weakness that Aspinall may have until proven otherwise. And that is, of course, the vast majority of Aspinall's fights ended in round 1, but 2 out of the 3 fights that have gone past round 1, Aspinall has lost. Now, 2 of these fights against Parobiec and Austin were a very long time ago. However, we know that generally speaking, heavyweights do have pretty bad gas tanks, right? They're big guys, they're heavy guys, they carry a lot of weight with them, and they do tend to slow down as the fight progresses. Now, if you go back and watch his fights against Austin and Parobiec, he did lose because he slowed down. It's as simple as that. And that's very interesting to me because Sergey Spivak is one of these guys that does have a pretty good gas tank for a heavyweight. Now, whether he'll have a good gas tank on a week's notice, I'm not so sure. But I do think there's enough evidence that Aspinall's gas tank may be a little bit suspect. Because if you go back and watch his last fight against Andrei Arlovski that did go into the second round, Aspinall started that fight very light on his feet, lots of footwork, lots of movement, hand speed fast, moving really, really well. But towards the end of that first round, he started to become very flat-footed, started to breathe quite heavily, and started to become quite a bit more sloppy. So this is an interesting fight because we don't know for sure that Aspinall's got a bad gas tank, but he did look a little bit sloppy towards the end of the first round against Arlovski, and he has lost the only fights of his career prior to coming into the UFC that went past round 1. So where there's smoke, there could be fire, and that's something that is worth considering this weekend. Because Sergey Spivak is a tough guy. You look at his record, he was knocked out in his UFC debut against Walt Harris, but he is a tough guy. It's not easy to get him out of there. He's got a bit of UFC experience now. He's reasonably well-rounded. He's got a good gas tank, and if he can come into this fight, force Aspinall to defend takedowns early, wear on him in the clinch, I do think this fight could get very, very interesting into the second and third round, because based on what we've seen, Aspinall's gas tank may be a little bit sketchy. But that's speculation at this stage. Like I say, there's not enough concrete information for us to form a strong opinion on that. But it's definitely something that we've got to be aware of, because when you look at a fighter in the odds range that Aspinall is in order to bet someone in this 1.40 odds range, you've got to give him a better than 71% chance of winning. And in order to cap someone at an implied probability of better than 71%, they've got to have virtually no way to lose. And because we don't know tons about Aspinall, because so many of his fights have been against low level opponents and they've ended very quickly, and because there are some question marks over his gas tank, and because we haven't seen him defend any takedowns or face a grappler, there's no way that you can bet Aspinall at these odds. It's just ridiculous. There's just no value there. On the other side of the coin, I'm not rushing out to bet on Sergey Spivak either, because at odds of around 3.0, which is plus 200, I'm just not a fan of betting on a guy coming in on a week's notice in a division where most guys do have bad gas tanks, right? Sergey Spivak is a big guy who knows what kind of shape he's coming into this fight with. I just don't think it's smart to bet a guy coming on a week's notice when, we haven't seen any of Aspinall's takedown offensive ground game. And if he does have a good gas tank and he can keep this fight standing, he's probably going to light Spivak up and knock him out, I would imagine. So, tricky fight for betting this. Definitely dog or pass, though. If you do want to bet this fight, Spivak is the side to be on. But this one is difficult, man. We just don't know enough about Aspinall, to really get a strong read on this fight. So I'd recommend passing, but if you really want to bet it, Spivak, this is definitely dog or pass. So now let's get into the main event. We are going to be talking about the fight between Darren Till and Derek Brunson. So if we start off by taking a look at the odds on this one, we can see that Darren Till is currently around about an average of 1.57, which is minus 175, for an implied probability of 64%. If we take a look at the odds on Derek Brunson, he's currently around about an average of 2.50, which is plus 150 for an implied probability of 40%. Start off by taking a look at the tail of the tape here. So Darren Till, 28 years old, 6 foot tall with a 75-inch reach, and Derek Brunson, 37 years old, 6'1" with a 77-inch reach. So Derek Brunson with a little bit of a size and reach advantage. However, he is 9 years older than Darren Till. And as you guys know, if you watch my content a lot, when there is a 9-year age gap in a fight, the younger fighter will win around 70% of the time. So already, the numbers, in terms of that stat, favour Darren Till here. This is a young man's sport. And Darren Till, at 28 years old, is going to be making big improvements from fight to fight. Whereas Derek Brunson, at 37 years old, he is going to be declining significantly from fight to fight. We know that when fighters reach the age of 33, body starts to produce significantly lower levels of testosterone, and therefore their athletic performance will decline every year thereafter. There will be unicorns, there will be exceptions, the rule like Daniel Cormier. But the smartest thing to do is stay on the side of the trend, stick to the general rule, and the general rule is every time we see Derek Brunson now for the rest of his career, he's going to look worse than he did in the fight, prior to that. He's going to be on a decline. Father Time is undefeated. So I absolutely love Darren Till in this fight. Darren Till is one of my biggest pre-fight bets of the year so far, and this is just a great stylistic matchup for Darren Till. I bet him last week when his odds were a lot better than they are now. But I do think that Darren Till is likely to do really, really well this weekend, and I do think he's worth a bet for the reasons that I'll explain, obviously, in this breakdown. So, from a stylistic point of view, this is what I would call a checkmate fight, and a checkmate fight is quite simply when one of the fighters doesn't really have a path to victory when you look at how they match up skill for skill. Now, that doesn't mean that the fighter in question can't win. Of course, they can, win the fight by flash KO and land something crazy. Of course, they could trap their opponent in a bad position and submit them. A checkmate matchup doesn't mean that a bet is super safe or, it can't lose. But what it does mean is you have your money in a really strong position, and unless something crazy happens, the probability of you losing that bet is quite low. And the reason why I think this is a checkmate matchup is because Derek Brunson is primarily a grappler, right? He's got a base in wrestling, he's got a former NCAA Division III level background, and that's where his strength is. His strength is on the ground. But Derek Brunson's 37 years old now, and because of that, he's not as athletic as he used to be. He's quite stiff, he's quite flat-footed, and because of that, he struggles to shoot in deep on the hips of his opponents and upset their balance like he used to be able to do earlier on in his career. Earlier on in Derek Brunson's career, he could generate a lot of drive on his takedown entries and, drive through, use a little bit of chain wrestling to get his opponents to the ground. Because he's older, more flat-footed and stiff now, the vast majority of Derek Brunson's takedown attempts come above hip height. So they come like this height, right? Where he'll come forward, try and get to the body lock, and then try and upset your balance with body lock trips and throws. It is very difficult to take a guy like Darren Till down from that kind of takedown for a couple of reasons. The first one being Darren Till is a master of distance control. He is very, very good at reading his opponents. Very good at reading when they're going to come forward. So when Derek Brunson is going to come forward and look for a takedown, he comes forward quite stiff, rigid and upright at like this height because he's looking to get the body lock. He's not looking to shoot in on the legs or hips. Because Darren Till's so good at reading distance and reading his opponent, or measuring distance and reading his opponents, he should be able to see someone like Derek Brunson coming from a mile away. So straight away it's going to be difficult for Derek Brunson to actually tie Darren Till up and get to the takedown in the first place. If he does, it's not going to be easy to get the takedown, from there either. If Derek Brunson is able to come forward, get inside and get to that body lock, it's still very difficult to take Darren Till down because Darren Till has a base in Muay Thai. He's very strong in the clinch. So when you're trying to take him down from the clinch and upset his balance from the clinch, it's not easy. He's got a solid frame, really strong hips, good balance, and on top of that, very, very good takedown defense from a technical point of view. Does a good job of clearing his legs away from his opponent, digging underhooks nice and early, and he doesn't hesitate in working out of positions, when his opponent's trying to take him down. He does a really good job of using underhooks to break the grip of his opponent very, very quickly. And it's just not easy to take this guy down with the style of wrestling that Derek Brunson uses. Even if Derek Brunson does get Darren Till down, it's not going to be easy for Derek Brunson to hold Darren Till down. If you go back and you watch any of Derek Brunson's past fights, when he does get guys to the ground, he gives them a lot of space from top position to work their way back up to their feet. He isn't the kind of guy that's going to stay really tight to his opponent and control him and hold him down. He postures up a lot and attacks with ground and pound, which makes it, makes it easier for his opponent to work their way back up to their feet because of the space that he's giving them. So Darren Till is one of these guys that as soon as you take him down, he is looking to create space off his back and pop back up to his feet. And Derek Brunson just doesn't have the heaviest top game. So straight away, this is a difficult stylistic matchup for Derek Brunson because he's a wrestler. Darren Till is a striker, and I don't feel like Derek Brunson's going to be able to use his grappling against Darren Till. So then we look at how these two guys match up from a stylistic point of view when it comes to striking. And I think most people can agree that Derek Brunson's just nowhere near the level of Darren Till. Derek Brunson has a wild, chaotic, sloppy style of striking where he fights with his hands low, his chin up high, stands very flat-footed and stiff, and just doesn't read his opponent particularly well. There's no fluidity to Derek Brunson's striking. Brunson has a very blitzing, heavy style of striking where he just blitzes forward, winging these big wide hooks, hoping to land something crazy. But in kickboxing range, he's very, very ineffective. In the range at which Darren Till does his best work in the middle of the octagon, Derek Brunson's just not going to be able to get near Darren Till. Till is so good at reading his opponent and so good at controlling the distance that, again, every time Brunson comes forward to attack him, he's going to see those shots coming from a mile away. And I honestly just see Darren Till dominating this fight by stuffing Derek Brunson's takedowns and being the far superior, more technical striker who's going to be able to just read Brunson and just pick him apart. Darren Till can do whatever he wants, this guy standing. The skill gap is so big, Derek Brunson is not going to be able to live with Darren Till when it comes to striking. So that is why I consider this to be a checkmate matchup. I don't see Derek Brunson being able to use his wrestling here. He might land a few takedowns here and there, but I don't think he's going to be able to hold Darren Till down. Till's very difficult to take down, even harder to hold down. So in a stand-up fight, this should be all Darren Till. Now, even though this is a checkmate matchup, and I think that Darren Till's advantages over Derek Brunson are absolutely enormous, it doesn't mean that Darren Till can't lose, right? There are things that Derek Brunson can do to win this fight. And the big major risk factor with this fight is Brunson catching Till with something crazy. I don't personally believe Derek Brunson can win a decision here because he's not going to be able to use his grappling for long enough to score enough points in 3 out of the 5 rounds to win a decision. He's definitely not going to be able to outstrike Till. Derek Brunson's only path to victory here is knocking Till out. And it is possible that he does that. If we look at Till's record, Till has been, knocked out or dropped in 3 of his last 4 fights. Whittaker dropped him, and then of course Masvidal knocked him out, and then Tyron Woodley dropped him as well. Darren Till can be dinged. He can be dropped. At the end of the day, it's not good that he's been dropped in 3 of his last 4 fights. However, you'd argue that Whittaker, Masvidal and Woodley are a hell of a lot more dangerous than Derek Brunson at this stage in Brunson's career. And on top of that, obviously, his fights against Woodley and Masvidal were at welterweight, where Darren Till's body would have been badly depleted from the weight cut. But at the same time, he did get dropped by Robert Whittaker at middleweight. So we've got to consider maybe Darren Till is a little bit chinny. Derek Brunson, for all of his weaknesses, his chaotic, sloppy striking, part of that is what makes him dangerous, because when he blitzes forward, you don't know if he's going to be changing levels and looking for a takedown, or if he's going to be coming upstairs with those big, wild, looping hooks. And because Derek Brunson isn't worried about being taken down, because he's very chaotic and reckless, he's not considering counters. So what kind of makes him dangerous? When Derek Brunson does blitz forward and throw, those big hooks, he throws everything into him and he lands with a lot of power. And his sloppiness and his chaotic style of striking is partly what makes him so dangerous. Now, he hasn't looked that dangerous, over the last couple of years. He has, since moving to Sanford MMA, become, I would say, a lot more sensible in the way that he attacks his opponents. You go back to like 2017, 2016, when he went on this run of just death-shotting guys in round one, Machida, Kelly, Hall, Carnero, Alvey, and Herman. He would literally just sprint forward in a straight line, winging bombs, not consider his own safety at all, and just throw everything into his power punches. Since moving to Sanford MMA, he's a lot more tactical. He fights a lot safer. Doesn't put himself in as much danger when he's blitzing forward and looking to take his opponent out. However, I do feel that's a little bit of a detriment to him, because he's not as dangerous as he used to be, because he is trying to fight a lot smarter and a lot safer. I kind of feel like his recklessness, his chaotic style that we saw from him back in 2017 is what made him, really, really dangerous. And so, even though we haven't seen that side to him for a couple of years now, it doesn't mean that if he does revert back to that style, he can't catch Darren Till with something bad, something big, hurt him really bad, and knock him out. And so, yeah, this is a great fight for Till, great stylistic matchup. He absolutely has the skills to keep this fight standing, and it is very difficult to rationalize a situation where Derek Brunson wins a stand-up fight against Darren Till. The skill gap is too big. Till should light this guy up and dominate him. Doesn't mean it's a safe bet. Doesn't mean Darren Till will 100% win. He has been dropped in 3 of his last 4. Maybe Brunson can catch him with something crazy, but skill for skill, this is a great stylistic matchup for Darren Till, and it's why I'll be betting him pretty big this weekend. So I hope you found that useful. So thanks for watching, guys. Leave a comment below if you appreciate these breakdowns, and don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you very much, boys. Take care, and I will see you in a couple of weeks when the UFC is back for that Anthony Smith versus Ryan Spann card. So take care. Love you all. Thanks for watching, boys. Bye.